When the bells marked nightfall in a medieval city, wealth did not simply buy comfort, it bought escape. Behind oak doors and drawn curtains, nobles and merchants vanished into warmth, clean linen, and guarded silence. Outside, in that same city, laborers, widows, apprentices, and beggars tried to sleep beside damp straw, stale waste, vermin, and hunger. Medieval inequality did not end in the marketplace or at the feast table. It followed people into the dark. And once the streets went black, it decided who would recover by morning and who would merely survive the night. Night in a medieval city did not fall gently. It dropped like a lid. Market noise thinned, shutters slammed, church bells rolled over crooked roofs, and the smell of the day settled lower instead of fading away. Whatever the city had spilled into its lanes stayed there in the dark. Mud, ash, urine, stale ale, fish scales, horse dung, sour milk, and the sweet, sick hint of things already turning bad. This was the hour when class stopped being abstract and became physical. The wealthy withdrew behind oak doors and thick curtains, while the poor remained where the city had always left them, pressed against cold walls, bundled in rags, trying to sleep in places that barely counted as shelter. If you followed a lord, a merchant prince, or a prosperous guildmaster home after sunset, the change felt almost insulting. One moment you were in a lane slick with wastewater and dim torchlight. The next you crossed a threshold into wax candle glow, stone floors covered with rushes that were actually changed, and a chamber where the air smelled of wood smoke, cooked meat, wool, and stored wine instead of the open sewer. The rich did not merely own better beds. They owned distance. Distance from the street, from the damp, from the noise, from desperation, and from the human crush that made poor sleep so miserable. Their rest began long before they closed their eyes. It began with walls, servants, locks, and the power to keep filth at bay. That is the part romantic visions of medieval life rarely linger on. Sleep was not a universal pause at the end of the day. It was another class divide, perhaps one of the most intimate and merciless in the entire city. One group withdrew into warmth and privacy. The other remained exposed to cold, vermin, waste, and fear. If you wanted to understand how a medieval city truly worked, you did not need to begin with coronations or cathedrals. You only had to ask a simpler question. When night came, who was allowed to recover, and who was forced to endure it? If you want to keep exploring the side of history most people never show in full, subscribe. Upstairs, in the better parts of the house, beds were not just furniture. They were declarations. Heavy frames, ropes tightened under layered mattresses, linen sheets, wool blankets, fur throws, and feather-filled bolsters turned sleep into a kind of private kingdom. Curtains could be drawn around the bed to trap warmth and block drafts, creating a little room inside the room. A brazier or a nearby hearth might take the edge off the night, and even when winter bit through stone, wealth gave you more layers to fight back with. You lay above the chaos, literally and socially. Your skin touched clean cloth. Your head sank into softness. Your body, tired perhaps from travel, feasting, negotiation, or ceremony, met comfort instead of punishment. That alone changed the shape of the next day. Now go back down into the poorer quarters, where the city leaned inward and the alleys narrowed until night felt like another wall pressing against your face. Here, sleep was improvised. A laborer might collapse onto a sack stuffed with straw already blackened by moisture and use a rolled tunic for a pillow. A family might sleep side by side on a floor of packed earth or warped planks, sharing one rough blanket that never seemed large enough to cover everyone at once. A widow renting half a room might curl against a wall to avoid the drip from a damaged roof. An apprentice might sleep in a workshop beside tools, casks, and the sour smell of whatever trade owned his life. A beggar might not even have that. He might choose a church porch, a stable corner, or the lee of a bakery wall that still held a little heat after midnight. The poor did not sleep in privacy. They slept in negotiation with cold, crowding, and hunger. Even inside a poor dwelling, the room itself seemed to work against you. Cracks in timber let the wind find your ankles. Rotten thatch leaked. Damp climbed the wall and stayed there, turning every blanket heavier and every morning meaner. A sleeping space could be shared with chickens, with a goat with fleas, with mice that knew exactly where crumbs collected. with lice that did not care if you were exhausted enough to ignore them. Your nose never forgot where you were. There was always a trace of soot, wet wool, old broth, unwashed bodies, and chamber pots waiting for dawn. For the rich, the bed helped the body recover. For the poor, the night often deepened the damage the day had started. If this kind of reality feels harsher than the legends history usually tells, leave a like. The soundscape told the same story. In a noble chamber, thick fabric and interior rooms softened the city into something distant. A faint bell, a muffled hoofbeat, a servant's careful step beyond the door. It was possible to hear a fire settling in the hearth, to listen to quiet voices, to drift. Down in the crowded streets, sleep had to fight for its life. Dogs barked, drunks shouted, someone argued below the window. A cart rolled late over broken stone. A baby cried in the next room or in the same room because walls were thin and lives were thinner. Somewhere nearby, a man coughed that deep, wet cough that made everyone pretend not to notice. Somewhere else, a woman emptied slops into the lane. The city did not hush for the poor. It kept grinding beside them like a millstone. Then there was safety, the invisible luxury that made every blanket feel thicker. A rich household could bar its doors, station servants, trust neighbors of equal rank, and rely on a city order built largely to protect property like theirs. A merchant slept knowing his goods were stacked behind walls, his silver accounted for, his household under watch. A poor family slept with one ear open. Their few possessions were easy to steal because everything they owned was already small enough to carry. A knife, a loaf, a pair of shoes, a scrap of cloth, a tool handle, a crust saved for morning. Any of it could vanish by dawn. Worse than theft was intrusion. The poor slept where others could reach them, hear them, smell them, judge them. Privacy is hard to notice when you have it. It becomes brutal when you do not. The difference could be measured in fabric alone. Linen against skin changes the entire meaning of night. Wool that is dry keeps its promise. Fur holds warmth like memory. The rich had access to these things in quantity, and quantity mattered. 1 blanket is need. 3 blankets are confidence. The poor relied on garments already worn all day, stiff with sweat, dust, grease, and rain. They slept in tomorrow's discomfort because they had nothing else to become. Boots were not left neatly by the bed as part of a peaceful routine. Sometimes they stayed on because frozen feet hurt more than cramped ones. Sometimes a cloak had to serve as mattress, blanket, and coat at once. Medieval poverty turned every object into 3 desperate uses, and none of them fully worked. Winter made the class divide cruel enough to feel deliberate. Cold entered poor dwellings from every direction. It came from the floor, from the wall, from the roof, from the spaces around the door, from bedding that never really dried, and from bodies too underfed to produce much heat. Rich people also lived in cold buildings by modern standards, but wealth gave them defenses. More fuel, better cloth, tighter rooms, servants to warm beds with pans or prepare fires, and a full stomach that let the body hold warmth more stubbornly. The poor lay down already shivering and woke with joints stiff as if the city itself had slept on top of them. Their breath hung white in rooms not much better than the street. A child crying from cold could keep an entire family awake. A night like that did not restore anyone. It just carried misery forward until sunrise. What do you think would have broken sleep faster in a place like this? The cold, the hunger, or the fear of what the night might bring? Summer was not kinder. Heat in a packed medieval city did not smell like flowers and sunlit stone. It smelled like fermentation. Refuse cooked in the lanes. Cesspits thickened. Slaughter waste turned sweet and foul at once. Stagnant drains released a breath that seemed to slide under the door and sit on your chest. The wealthy, with larger rooms, higher ceilings, courtyards, and the ability to move air through the house, could still make a hot night tolerable. The poor sweated in cramped lofts and crowded chambers where human heat pooled like steam. Mattresses alive with vermin became impossible to ignore. Infants whimpered. Adults rolled, slapped, scratched, cursed, and tried to pretend this counted as rest. The city rotted more quickly in heat, and the poor lay closest to the rot. Disease haunted every medieval bed, but not with equal intimacy. The rich feared sickness, of course, and often believed bad air, divine displeasure, or hidden corruption might strike any household. Yet belief and exposure were not the same thing. Wealth reduced contact with the city's worst concentrations of filth. It allowed cleaner linens, more food, more space, and the option to leave when a district became dangerous. The poor remained where the danger thickened. They slept beside damp walls, beside waste, beside each other, beside the cough that would not stop, beside the feverish child, beside the old woman breathing too fast, beside the laborer whose skin had gone hot and dry after a day hauling spoiled cargo in summer heat. Night made these signs impossible to escape. You could hear illness. You could smell it. You could feel it in the restless turning of the body beside you. Children learned the hierarchy of sleep before they understood the hierarchy of law. A wealthy child was tucked into layered cloth, watched over, protected from drafts, and trained to expect comfort as the natural order of the world. A poor child learned early how to sleep through noise, hunger, and fear because there was no other choice. He might share bedding with siblings, parents, even lodgers. She might sleep lightly because someone had to wake first for work, for water, for market errands, for baking, for carrying, for survival. When children grew in those conditions, sleep did not feel like peace. It felt like a truce that could be broken by weather, by debt, by illness, by a landlord pounding the door, by the simple fact that morning came too soon and wanted labor from even the smallest hands. Servants complicate the picture, because even inside a rich house, not everyone slept richly. The master's chamber might be warm and curtained, but the servant who helped make that comfort possible could be dozing by the kitchen embers, in a side room, on a chest, or on a pallet near the door. Medieval comfort worked like a ladder. The more people beneath you, the softer your bed could become. A noblewoman might rest under embroidered coverings while the girl who laced her gowns curled up in a passage with a rough wool wrap and cold feet. The poor did not only exist outside elite households. They held candles within them, fetched water within them, emptied pots within them, and then slept in the leftovers of comfort after its owners were done using it. For people renting in the city, sleep could become a calculation in humiliation. Lodgings were crowded because space was money, and money was always missing. One room could hold too many bodies, too many smells, too many private sorrows. The air turned used long before dawn. Someone snored, someone muttered, someone scratched, someone rose before sunrise and stepped over sleeping limbs to leave for work. If you were new to the city, poor, and desperate for employment, you often accepted whatever corner you could afford, because the alternative was the street. That meant paying for the privilege of being uncomfortable. The rich purchased silence and insulation. The poor rented proximity to other people's exhaustion. Fire added another layer of dread tonight, especially in crowded districts built from timber, straw, and bad luck. The wealthy feared house fires because wealth burns well, but they had more space, more help, more means of recovery, and often better-built homes. The poor slept in neighborhoods where one overturned lamp or one careless ember could turn darkness into panic before anyone had even found their boots. Imagine trying to rest while knowing that half the wall around you might become flame by morning. Imagine sleeping dressed because if fire came, there would be no time to search for your only cloak. The poor lived close to danger by day and slept beside its doorstep by night. Even when no fire came, the possibility of it kept the body from sinking fully into rest. And then there was the matter no romance about medieval life ever wants to linger on long enough: waste. The rich had chamber pots too, certainly, but they also had servants to deal with the results, courtyards to distance the smell, and household routines that moved filth away from the bedchamber. Poor neighborhoods often kept it near. Buckets waited until morning. Drains clogged. Privies overflowed. Streets received what homes could not contain. In cold weather, the stench dulled but never vanished. In wet weather, it spread. In hot weather, it rose like a warning. To sleep poor in a medieval city was to trust your body to an environment that was forever mixing living space with waste space. The rich were not pure. They were simply buffered. Food changed sleep too. The wealthy ended the night with a full stomach, warm drink, and the knowledge that breakfast would appear whether harvests failed or not. Their dreams were not necessarily happy, but hunger did not gnaw its way through them hour by hour. The poor often lay down half-fed, and an empty stomach is not a quiet companion. It shifts, twists, nags, and keeps the mind alert in all the wrong ways. The body asks questions the room cannot answer. Can you sleep when tomorrow's bread is uncertain? Can you sleep well when your child ate less than you did? Can you call it rest when the body keeps reminding you that yesterday's labor did not purchase enough warmth, enough meat, enough certainty to last until dawn? Hunger turns night into an extension of work. There was humiliation in the contrast itself. Somewhere not far away, perhaps only a few streets across, musicians played for those who had already eaten well. Candles reflected in polished cups. Conversation floated under painted beams. Mattresses were beaten and aired. Sheets were mended before they became rags. A merchant's wife could complain that the room felt chilly, while a dock worker's family slept in damp clothes under a roof that smelled like mold. Medieval cities packed extremes close together. That was the insult. Misery was not hidden deep in the wilderness, far from luxury. It lived beside it, beneath it, behind it, carrying its goods, baking its bread, cleaning its mess, and then trying to sleep in the residue. Religion wrapped these nights in moral language, but the body kept score in simpler terms. Bells marked the hours for everyone, yet not everyone heard them from the same kind of pillow. Sermons praised charity, warned against greed, and spoke of earthly suffering as if it were a test. But the wealthy often suffered with a cushion under every spiritual lesson. A noble could pray in a private chapel and return to a curtained bed. A poor mother could whisper the same prayer while listening to a child wheeze beside her in a room that trapped damp like a curse. The city told both of them that God saw all. The mattress told a more immediate truth. Earthly comfort had owners, and they were few. Do you think people in a city like this saw that inequality as normal? Or did it feel as brutal to them as it does to us now? Even the architecture of sleep revealed who mattered. Better homes placed bedchambers farther from the street, higher from the mud, deeper into the security of the household. Poor homes blurred everything together. Cook, mend, eat, sleep, store tools, hush the baby, all within the same small space. Smoke from cooking settled into bedding. Daytime labor never fully left the room. The body could not step out of work into rest because work slept beside it. For the rich, the house was divided into functions. For the poor, life happened in a knot. This is one of the quietest forms of inequality and one of the most brutal. To recover, you need separation. The poor lived without it. Medieval elites also enjoyed something harder to picture than blankets and bedposts: permission to be vulnerable. A man of wealth could sleep deeply because a household stood between him and interruption. Others watched, carried, guarded, obeyed. For the poor, vulnerability was dangerous. To sleep heavily was to risk losing something, missing a call, failing to wake for labor, letting the fire die, letting the child wander, letting the landlord pound unanswered at the door. The body learns its circumstances. It adapts badly but intelligently. It becomes a watchman when life offers no other guard. That is why poor sleep looks restless in every century. It is not weakness, it is training. Morning showed the results with cruel clarity. The wealthy woke stiff perhaps because medieval comfort still had limits, but they rose from depth. They had been sheltered enough to gather themselves. Basins awaited. Clothing was dry. Food was coming. Their faces met the day with some reserve left in them. The poor woke already spent. Their backs hurt from bad flooring. Their skin itched. Their mouths were sour. Their first breath tasted like the room they had survived. They had not been restored so much as paused, and yet the city wanted their strength immediately. Bread had to be carried, dung hauled, leather scraped, fish sold, fires lit, stones moved, floors swept, bodies pushed back into motion before they had finished being human for the night. This is why the romantic picture of medieval urban life collapses the moment you look at bedtime. Forget the banners, the towers, the feast halls, the market color, the old stone charm tourists imagine. Ask where people slept, on what, beside whom, with what smell in the air, with what fear in the gut, and the truth arrives quickly. Wealth in a medieval city did not only buy finer clothing or better food, it bought a different night. It bought silence, warmth, fabric, security, privacy, and the ability to wake with more of yourself still intact. Poverty meant your body remained exposed even in darkness, when it should have been safest. And once you see that, the rest of the city changes shape. The baker rising before dawn, the mason on aching legs, the woman carrying water, the child yawning in the shop doorway, the porter already bent beneath a load. None of them begin the day from the same starting line as the people who own the buildings they work in. Medieval inequality was not only visible in public ceremony, it was built into the mattress, the blanket, the floorboard, the lock, the curtain, the window and the wall. It was built into who got to disappear from the city at night and who remained trapped inside its breath. So when people say the rich slept while the poor rotted, it is not just a bitter line, it is almost physically true. The rich slept behind layers that protected flesh, mood, and memory. The poor lay close to damp, rot, vermin, waste, hunger, and noise until those things became part of the body's nightly routine. Rot was not always dramatic. Often it was slow, straw going sour, timber sweating with mold, clothes never drying fully, teeth worsening, lungs thickening, skin breaking under bites and dirt, spirit wearing down from too many nights with too little comfort. The city did not need to crush the poor in one blow. It could simply refuse them rest. That may be the darkest contrast of all. Sleep is the most ordinary human need, the one moment when everybody asks for surrender, warmth, and repair. Medieval cities turned even that into a class privilege. One person climbed into layered linen and drifted off with the fire glowing low. Another curled around his own hunger, listening to rats inside the wall and footsteps in the lane, wondering whether rain would come through the roof before dawn. They lived under the same bells, the same crown, the same heaven, but not the same night. And in the morning, one of them would be ready to rule the city a little longer, while the other would stumble back into the mud and keep it alive. And if you want to step into another brutal corner of history that comfort usually hides, there's more waiting on this channel.